Are you back with us, Mr. Violante?
Yeah, I mean, this is absolute. Some of the statements that are coming out of the Reverend Sharpton, the most ludicrous things I've ever heard. The last thing we need.
Let him make his point.
The last thing we need is more people to incite riots in the city. You know, he's sitting there in New York. I just was out there. I smelled the smoke. I talked to the people. I talked to the officers on the street. They mentioned people being angry. Okay, wait. They mentioned people being angry. This is a democracy. You have the right to protest, but you don't have the right to loot, to burn, to shoot at firefighters, to shoot at police officers because you're just satisfied with something.
Mr. Glasser commenting. Hang on. Mr. Glasser commenting.
Those comments are more inflammatory than anything that Reverend Sharpton said. Reverend Sharpton made it quite clear that neither he, nor I, nor anyone in this audience justifies that beating that we just saw, any more than we justify what happened to Rodney King. What he said, and what I agree with, is that the only people who have justified any violence so far is that jury.
Now, let me just set this up for you. How did we get here? How did we get here? Let's just a couple of things. I'll take just a moment. We're scared to death. We're putting another lock on our door. We are issuing more search and seizure warrants than ever before in the history of this nation. We got cops knocking doors down. Forget the Fourth Amendment. Man's home is his castle. Maybe not, especially if you're a minority. We are also now taking TV cameras with us when we go. Oh, man, you get to be on TV, knock doors down. It's fabulous. It's a show. It's a show. And when you step forward with these speeches about civil liberties, no matter how eloquent, your defense of the Bill of Rights falls on deaf ears. And I want to tell you something else. They're going to accuse you of, I know something about this. You go out there as a cop on the beat. You go out there, Mr. Legalese. You don't know whether you're going to get a driver's license or a .357 Magnum in your face. We're outgunned and undermanned. And anybody who presumes to step up and suggest that the cops are somehow misbehaving, you're going to get this. What do you got against the cops? What do you got against the cops? These cops are behaving this way because they know they have the support of the vast majority of the white citizens in this country.
First of all, I don't think cops have any more reason to be happy about this decision than anyone else. If I were wearing a blue uniform, I sure as hell wouldn't want to be walking around in any city in this country today. Most cops are going to suffer from this as much as anyone else. Most cops, and I talked to a lot of them, didn't like Daryl Gates, didn't think that the Los Angeles Police Department was functioning right. The fact of the matter is that why we are here today is not because of civil rights. It's because of 10 years of leadership, of a lack of leadership, of a national leadership which has sowed the seeds of racial fear, sowed the seeds of racial resentment, and told everybody that the reason why we are unsafe in the streets is because we have too many rights. They have legitimized this kind of stuff. Daryl Gates let every officer in his department know that that kind of behavior was okay. Ed Meese let everybody know. Ronald Reagan let everybody know. George Bush vetoed every civil rights bill you put on his desk. This is a country which has backed off the problem of racial equity. The criminal justice system is racist from the beginning, from the arrest to the death row penalties at the end. It functions in a way which you cannot conclude that it is not racial if you look at the facts and you look at the statistics. And what happened in Los Angeles was a little piece of that. Until we confront that honestly, and until we have some politicians with the will to do something about it, we aren't going to solve it. And I do not believe that most white Americans saw that film of Rodney King and thought it was okay. I think most of them were sickened by it. But those 12 who happened to be on that jury thought it was okay, and that's why we have anger, and everybody should be angry, and white people should be just as angry.
And we'll be back in just a moment. Mr. Lerman?
Yes.
Very good. You're on the satellite from Burbank. You are Steve Lerman. You are the attorney at law representing Rodney King. You find yourself now 2 seats removed from Theodore Brasino. May we assume that you found his testimony to be an act of courage?
I believe that given the considerations Mr. Brasino probably faced during the course of the trial, his counsel, I believe, has served him wisely and well, and to the extent that Mr. Brasino told what he thought was an accurate version of the events as they existed on March 3rd, I have to say that given the fallout, that is to say from his co-defendants and from some other people that watched his presentation, he probably now realizes that what he did was an act of courage.
Mm-hmm. Do you think it was an act of courage, Mr. Violante, president of the Los Angeles Police Protective League?
Like I told you, like I stated before, each officer had their state of mind with what happened at that time. And Officer Brasino presented his state of mind, the other officers presented their state of mind. You know, I think we're getting off the mark here. Somebody talked about what's been happening. For the last 13 months, police officers in the city of Los Angeles have been suffering. Black officers, Hispanic officers, Asian officers, female officers, white officers. We've all been suffering as a result of this tragic incident. It's time to get away from this, and let's get on with the healing process. We need the healing process to begin. This isn't doing anybody any good.
Mr.
Look
Violante,
at your television set.
Yes, Mr. Violante, I appreciate very much your point. You made that before. Could it not be said that you likewise, speaking for the uniformed police officers in Los Angeles, have a responsibility toward this healing? And in that connection, may we have, for example, from you, an agreement to the following observation. The behavior of these police officers, as recorded on this videotape, was conduct unbecoming a police officer. Would you agree with that?
That determination will be made by a board of rights. The jury found that these officers were not guilty of criminal conduct.
But see, that's where the healing stops. He wants to have healing without the patient in the room. He wants black leaders to go to black communities and say calm, but when we say to him to say the same to police, he wants to say, no, another board will have to decide that.
And we'll be back in just a moment. News or the final update about Los Angeles from New York. But I can tell you that there are now 13 dead, and the curfew has been extended through tonight and presumably until further notice. A number of activities obviously have been canceled in Los Angeles for the day and the night, including the Dodger game, which has been canceled for this evening. You've been on the line listening in, Congressman Conyers. Respecting the clock here, with apologies, what would you want to share with this audience?
Well, first of all, I want you to know that the court system has failed miserably. The Rodney King beating shocked the world. It even shocked President Bush. Now the acquittal has left everybody wondering whether there's any justice that can be found in the courts. I called Attorney General Barr yesterday as soon as I heard about this and reminded him that there's a federal civil rights statute, Title 18, Section 1942, that should be brought in immediately that would make people realize that the federal government understands that Rodney King's civil rights can still be vindicated. So I've begged the Attorney General to get on the ball. But
you've been begging attorneys general since 1980.
Well, I held police brutality hearings concerning Daryl Gates in 1980.
Yeah, so what makes you think? May I make this point, Congressman Conyers? President Bush's statement today, this is my opinion, was rather flat.
It was awful. But, I mean, that's the point.
Now, not only that, Attorney General Barr, do I understand him now to be saying that they are thinking about a civil...
They're studying a case that they've had lawyers monitoring from the very first day that it started. So all I'm asking them is to realize that the third largest city in the country is being set afire while they study to find out what every first-year law student already knows about civil rights law. Now, that's my job. We don't make donuts. We don't lead protests. We debate, we pass laws, and we try to influence the executive branch. So I'm going to be spending as much time begging, arguing, debating the president and the attorney general until the federal government does what it ought to do.
Briefly, fix this. What would Attorney-at-Law Glasser of the ACLU do given this nightmare?
Well, first of all, you got to fix this through politics. We have had worse incidents of racial violence in this country than this one. You got to fix it by having a federal government which vigorously prosecutes civil rights violations, which this government does not. Congress has to pass a new law which gives the Justice Department the right to go after patterns and practices, not just individual cases. The problem in Los Angeles has been that this has been going on for a long time, and we don't have the legal authority to go after it as a pattern and practice. You've got to pass Proposition F in Los Angeles, which is the proposition that will establish more civilian control over the police department and give the mayor the right to hire and fire the police commissioners, so you don't have people like Daryl Gates protected by civil service and doing what he did for so many years. Now, those are real political remedies. You got to have a civilian review board that is meaningful. But you cannot get those remedies enacted if you do not have the support of the majority of the populace.
Right. And if there's accepting your view that most Americans of all colors were horrified by this tape, the fact remains that when it comes down to the Bill of Rights versus the cop on the beat, this nation is going for the cop.
Not clear yet.
Not really.
Not clear yet.
One liner, please. Yes, briefly, sir, you wanted to say.
Yes, I don't believe that the rioting and the looting of the property and the killing of innocent people enhances the cause to fight against racism.
Yes.
If we as a society would repent, God will heal our land.
Yes.
The jury is guilty.
Yes.
Yes. I wonder about whether there was any jury tampering.
Yes.
What if Rodney King had been a female and those police officers had been raping her on videotape? Then what?
Yes, yes. Yes, sir, you wanted to say.
We've got to get respect back for authority in all walks of life.
Yes, I was making the point that I didn't think you had the political energy necessary to make the political changes you called for, Mr. Glasser.
In 1960, nobody thought that this country had the political energy to pass civil rights laws and to end Jim Crow. In 1964, we passed them all. The difference was political leadership, and the difference was people going out into the streets and pushing for it until Congress and the president gave in.
Officer Brasino, I do want to, with only moments left, is it fair to say, sir, that you're sorry about your participation in this event?
Well, not that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for Mr. King, and obviously I'm sorry I had to be indicted and my family 13 months.
But you're not sorry for your behavior during the event.
Mr. Donahue,
no.
I'd like to add one thing that maybe your listeners don't know. Rodney King's family did not believe that this officer was guilty. His aunt said on national television before this verdict was delivered that she believed Ted Brasino
303-831-9. We'll be doing what Glazer said, politically fighting with Martin.
You feel
at least 9 people have been killed.